not so much in terms of what government actively did than the oil price recovery. So right now, what is driven a recovery from recession is oil price recovery and also agriculture. But even in agriculture, because it takes time, gestation period takes some time, what government has been doing in the last 12 to 18 months have been very positive, very good for the economy, but the results really are yet to be seen.
In terms of the economy that the administration inherited, what's your view about that? What's your view about where we were in the countdown to May 29, 2015?
Right. At that stage, we are really at the edge of economic slide. And because then we saw oil price being on a free fall. If you look at the foreign exchange reserves, for instance, it was already down to about 33 billion. And then from then on, we had really shortage of foreign exchange inflow into this country. And this government had to grapple with that for some time until oil price recovered. So I would say that, again, I mean, things are trending up after there was a slump, and we can only look forward, positively to better times for Nigeria.
Johnson, let's come to you. In terms of, if you look at investments and the market's climate, before the 2015 general elections and the handing over of power, a major political shift of the country's political template. If you look at that as a basis to understand transition from democracy to democracy, but from a different political party, heavy one historically on the ground since 1999 to a brand new one who's been a major forceful opposition. From a political and investment, if you use the investment and the financial markets to gauge the mood of the market, both local and foreign investors, do you think what President Buhari signed on to on May 29, 2015 as the president and commander-in-chief of the country was a very stable, growing, what state of that market?
Well, if you look at the economy before the advent of the current government, the economy was gradually slowing down. We saw a GDP that had growth contracted to about 2.8% just before the last government left administration. But that slowdown was worsened over as the new government took power. You see, we have to look at put it in context. After the election, there was a lot of excitement. A lot of foreign portfolio investors and direct investors were eager to come to the country. They were thinking that we are going to have a new vintage. It was a new vintage for the country. Unfortunately, the excitement was not matched by the policies of government. The government seemed to have put a brake on the enthusiasm that investors had about coming to the country. Through policies, some of them, I believe, were by default. Issues about putting controls on FX policies, saying you cannot withdraw a large dollar into your domiciliary account. So many factors constrained the flow of investment into the country. And that was, part of it was a panic response to the crash in oil price. A lot of us said, look, you can't hold both rates, and you can't hold the exchange rate and interest rate at the same time. At that point, the government insisted on the $197 per barrel dollar exchange rate, which was not reflected with the market. And they ended up driving away virtual investors out of the legitimate market. And you saw exchange rate go as high as 525 naira to $1. But good it in wise counsel has come to prevail. We've seen the government introduce the investor and exporters window. We've seen a near convergence in exchange rate from a wide of 197, then government moved to 305. And then you had 525. Now we have the exchange rate range between 360, 365 to 305. So we've seen some clawback in terms of policy. Policies are beginning to look positive. At some point, virtually all the policies and announcements coming from the country were discouraging investors. But we are seeing a turnaround in that, and that's beginning to reflect in the flow of foreign portfolio investment and direct investment. I mean, the CBN government announced recently that we received about 18 billion through the investor and exporters window. If you compare that with what we got prior to the April introduction of investor and exporters window, we were talking about $1.4 billion. So policies have largely determined how investors responded to the market.
Thank you. Kunle, if you look at the budget that was the last budget prepared by the Jonathan's administration, which was the 2015 budget that took us into the election year, and you look at what happened, the political fever pitch environment we had for most of 2015, do you think this current administration actually had a very soft landing, as it were, when they came into office? Even though they had what you call, what's been described as what you call the political capital, when investors home and abroad and voters were actually optimistic that the Buhari's administration will hit the ground and running. Well,
talking about whether the government had a soft landing when they came into office, looking at vis-a-vis the budget for 2015 and what President Buhari took over when he became the president of Nigeria, already rightly mentioned, Nigeria was already on the path to a recession when this government took over. So yes, there was a lot of optimism about the new government, both internally and internationally, about the new government when Buhari came into power. I think that optimism didn't last for so long, partly because there was a lot of breaks or pauses. For instance, the cabinet wasn't mentioned, wasn't announced until 6 months after this government came into power. So I wouldn't say this government had a very good soft landing. We're already in recession. The recession wasn't the making of the present administration. And you already had already mentioned that coming out of recession also, and I will agree with him, I do not think it was also either a making of the administration per se. It was largely driven by the increase in oil price internationally. Yes, we can also say that government has some influence in that, because even if the oil price has risen and there was no oil to sell, and they wouldn't have been able to make some money. But clearly, the intervention in the Niger Delta region, which resulted in a lot of stability and increase in output.
Do you think that's a major good point for the Buhari's administration? If the restiveness in the Niger Delta, remember, we went down as low as almost 600,000 barrels per day during the last few years of the Obasanjo's administration, when the militancy were at their peak in terms of speaking.